Have you ever found out the person you trusted most was lying to you? I did, and it changed my life forever. I've always been a dedicated doctor, putting my patients first, but nothing could have prepared me for the shock I was about to receive. It started with a simple question from one of my colleagues, "Sophia, have you seen the latest patient files?" I replied, "Not yet, I've been busy with surgeries." But then she said something that made my heart skip a beat. "You should take a look, especially at the diagnosis of your latest patient." Suddenly, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. What could be so important about this patient's file? I quickly made my way to the hospital's records room, my mind racing with possibilities. As I opened the file, my eyes widened in disbelief. The diagnosis was not what I had expected, and it seemed my whole world was about to crumble. But how could this be? I had trusted my team, my hospital, with my life's work. And then it hit me, what if everything I thought I knew was a lie? The woman who raised me as her daughter was never my mother, and now, it seemed, my professional life was built on lies as well. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The patient's file had been altered, the diagnosis changed to something less severe. But why? And who could have done this? I felt a surge of betrayal and anger. How could my colleagues, my friends, do this to me and to our patients? I decided to investigate further, starting with reviewing the security footage and talking to the nurses who had been on duty. As I dug deeper, I discovered that this wasn't an isolated incident. There were several cases where patient files had been tampered with, all of them involving the same doctor, my mentor, Dr. Lee. I couldn't understand why he would do such a thing. He had always been a role model to me, a man of integrity and compassion. But the evidence was clear. I was torn between my loyalty to Dr. Lee and my duty to my patients. I knew I had to confront him, but I was afraid of what I might find out. What if he wasn't the man I thought he was? What if everything I had learned from him was a lie? I scheduled a meeting with Dr. Lee, my heart heavy with anticipation. As I sat in his office, waiting for him to arrive, I couldn't help but think about all the times he had guided me, supported me. Was it all a facade? The door opened, and Dr. Lee walked in, a smile on his face. "Sophia, what can I do for you?" he asked, his voice warm and friendly. I took a deep breath and began to ask my questions, my heart pounding in my chest. Dr. Lee listened to my questions, his expression unreadable. At first, he denied any wrongdoing, telling me that I must have misunderstood the situation. But as I presented him with the evidence, his demeanor changed. He became defensive, then angry. "You don't understand, Sophia," he said. "This is how the system works. Sometimes, for the greater good, we have to bend the rules." I was taken aback by his response. The greater good? By lying to patients and altering their files? I couldn't accept that. But what about our oath as doctors? I asked. What about our duty to do no harm? Dr. Lee sighed, his anger dissipating. "You're young, Sophia. You still believe in the idealism of medicine. But the reality is much harsher. Sometimes, the only way to survive is to play the game. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was this really what my profession had been reduced to? A game of survival, where the truth was secondary to personal gain? I realized then that I had a choice to make. I could either continue down this path, compromising my values and my integrity, or I could stand up for what I believed in, no matter the cost. As I left Dr. Lee's office, I knew what I had to do. I would fight for the truth, for my patients, and for the integrity of our profession. But I also knew that it wouldn't be easy. There would be those who would try to silence me, to discredit me. I was ready for the challenge, though. I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with my conviction and my determination to do what was right. The days that followed were intense. I began to investigate further, gathering more evidence and talking to other doctors and nurses who had suspicions about the goings-on in the hospital. It wasn't easy. There were many who were afraid to speak out, afraid of retaliation. But I persisted, driven by my desire to uncover the truth. And then, one day, I received a call from an anonymous source. "Meet me in the hospital cafeteria at 5 p.m., the voice said. "Come alone." I was nervous but also curious. Who could this be? And what did they want to tell me? I arrived at the cafeteria, looking around cautiously. A figure in the corner caught my eye, a woman with a hood over her head. As I approached, she pulled back her hood, revealing a face I knew. It was one of the nurses who had been on duty the night I discovered the altered patient file. "I've been watching you, Dr. Rodriguez," she said. "I know what you're trying to do. And I want to help." She handed me a folder filled with documents and recordings. "This is the evidence you need," she said. "But be careful. There are those who will stop at nothing to keep this quiet." I took the folder, my heart racing. This was it. This was the proof I needed to expose the truth. I left the cafeteria, determined to see justice served. But as I walked back to my office, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched. I quickened my pace, my senses on high alert. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there. Or so I thought. As I entered my office, I locked the door behind me, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. But as I looked out the window, I saw a figure standing in the shadows, watching me. I knew then that I was in grave danger. But I was not going to back down. I was going to fight for the truth, no matter what. The days that followed were a blur. I presented my evidence to the hospital administration, and soon, the news of the scandal spread like wildfire. Dr. Lee and several other doctors were suspended, pending an investigation. It was a bittersweet victory for me. On one hand, I had fought for the truth and won. On the other hand, I had lost my mentor, my friend. But as I looked back on the journey, I realized that it was a necessary step. The truth, no matter how painful, was essential to our growth, to our integrity. And as I walked out of the hospital, I felt a sense of pride and purpose. I had stood up for what I believed in, even when it was hard. I had fought for my patients, for my profession. And I had emerged stronger, wiser. The experience had taught me a valuable lesson, that the truth is always worth fighting for, no matter the cost. And as I moved forward, I knew that I would carry this lesson with me, always. I would continue to fight for the truth, for justice, and for the integrity of our profession. Because in the end, it's not just about being a good doctor, it's about being a good person.